So signal flow, you can think of that as like we're starting at the microphone and then it ends at the speaker. So the signal flow is everything in between that, especially when you get into the mixer. It hits several parts here in a specific order. So the main thing that takes care of this is your console. So this is an analog mixer strip. It's not this analog board. You have like your input, gain, insert, high pass, EQ, aux sends, mute, fader, pan, and groups. Like it'll just run through all of those things, and depending how you set those, it'll do different things. So to send your signal out of the mixer, you can use aux sends, so there's auxiliary sends. So you have your main sort of flow going in through the channel and then out to your speakers, but then your auxiliary sends is a way to send those to different spots, like your monitors, live stream, to a recorder. Inserts, a few of us were talking about that last night. It's a way to take the signal out of the board to something and then back in again. So that's how you would use a compressor on an analog board. You'd use the insert channel on the channel, or the insert point on the channel. It would go out to the compressor, back in, and then it's now a compressed signal. Groups in and out, so you can group channels together, and then most of these will have like an output just for that group, so you could use that. Generally use groups to mix like drums as one channel when you have 8 of them, but you could also send everything to a group and then send that to a cry room or something if you wanted to use it for that. Then the house speakers just make it loud. So the inputs, you have XLR that takes your balance signal, runs into the preamp. A lot of the, especially the older analogs, will have a 1/4 inch input that usually bypasses the preamp because it's expecting sort of a line level signal from your keyboard or something, or from your computer. And then the 1/4 inch insert is used for that send in and out. This board here has 4 stereo inputs. So it's one fader, but it's designed to take in 2 channels at once. And that'll give you your left, right. And then it'll either be like RCA, that's that red and white plug from like VCRs, if you guys remember those things. You can go with 1/4 inch TS, like just the one band, so one would be your left, one would be your right. And then the stereo channels are often numbered as like 21, 22. So one thing that's always bugged me when you buy like a cheaper analog mixer, it'll say like it's a 12 channel mixer. I was like, well, it's got 4 XLRs, and then the rest of it is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because they're all stereo inputs, and there's no preamp for it or anything, so it's kind of cheating in my mind. And then some of them will have mono support. So like if you just plug into the left and that's all it's plugged in, then it'll treat it as a mono signal and just send the same signal twice. Phantom power, this one it's a button on here, and then on my mixer, it's just in the preamp section. I have the ability to turn on 48 volt. You want to switch it to the mixer for a second? So it's right up there, it says 48 volt. It says hold, so it's actually trying to protect you. So if I just tap it, nothing happens. But if I go here, that's not actually plugging anything. If I go here and actually hold it, it's now got phantom power. Go back. So yeah, it sends low voltage power through the channel's input cable, and you use that to power your mics or active DIs. When you get into cheaper mixers, often instead of having individual phantom powers, it'll be phantom powers on or it's off. And so it's sending on every channel or none of them. Some of them will do groups like 1 to 8 and 8 to 16, so you can turn on phantom for 1 to 8, but no phantom for 8 to 16. So that's one thing just to look out for. And then that would be the number one reason for not getting sound from a condenser is it needs power. Pad, some of us were talking about this. So this is actually generally between your preamp and the input. And so this is just if the signal's so hot, you turn the gain all the way off, basically, and you're still hit redlining. The signal's just too hot coming in. This will just turn it down a bit, quite a bit. Usually on the DI, it's 15 dB. A lot of mixers will do like 26 dB, and then you can now use your preamp gain. Gain, this is the big one, not a volume control. It does affect volume, but it's not a volume control. It controls the level of the signal coming into the board. Setting proper gain structure is one of the most important parts of your mix, in my opinion. So if let me set this back up again. There it is. All right, go back to the mixer again. So I've got my gain set so that as I'm talking, I'm hitting around that 0 point. That's giving me good signal. So if I send this to my aux here, check, 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 check. It's coming out of the speaker. Getting a bit of a ring because I'm kind of close to it. If I turn my gain down, my volume does go down now, but I can compensate by turning the whole system up. I've got the same volume, I've got way less signal. So now when I try to send this to my monitor, check, 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 1, 2, this is all the way up. This is as loud as I can go to this monitor. So one of the, let me just fix this now. One of the issues you run, or not issues, but one of the way people have mixed in the past is you set your fader to 0 and then adjust the gain to get the volume. There is some benefits to that. It's really nice because all your faders are in a line, and then you go, oh, I need more electric guitar right now. So you just bump the channel up. He's done his solo, you bring it back to 0. That's sort of that's home base. The problem you run into is a lot of places, front of house does more than front of house. You're mixing monitors and you're mixing your live stream. When you do that, all you're doing is mixing directly for front of house. If it comes out of the speakers at the right volume, it's fine. But you're cutting your signal strength. And that's the signal that's sent to those auxes. So now you don't have enough to send to your monitor. So if you get a complaint with someone like in in-ears, and they're like, I have this turned up all the way and I can't hear it. It's generally a gain problem. You don't have enough signal for them to actually hear it. Doesn't matter that your speakers can turn it up that loud, they can't. And then the same problem with your live stream. You can hear it in the room, but when you go to live stream and you listen to it, it's not there. It just wasn't enough signal there. So if you have a separate live stream mix and a monitor mix, you can mix like that at front of house fine. There's no problems. Yeah. Trim does the same thing. It's just a digital version, so gain is actually doing on the analog side. Trim is after it's become digital, you're just turning it down. So there are some people that do that because they want the highest signal fidelity to hit the A to D converter. And then after that, they don't care as much, they can trim it down. But if I did the same thing and just turned trim down, it would same thing, you'd hear the volume drop in the monitor as well. The better way to do it, as you can see, my fader is, even though I've set my gain so I'm hitting 0, my fader is at 0, and my main fader is also at 0. And the way I do that is I'm actually not running from this fader to the mains, I'm running into a matrix. So this one called mains here that's purple, it's taking my whole mix, and I can apply EQ just to the room, and it's not affecting my main left right, but I can cut volume to the room, or I could boost volume to the room. So this is the last stage before it leaves the console. That's where I'm applying my cut to sort of get the volume in the room. The other way you can do it is adjusting your amps. So the amps, they can go all the way up, and that does give you the most dynamic range because you can mix all the way up into the maximum volume they can do. But if they're way too loud for your room anyway, you can send, what I generally do is I'll play music at about 0 dB, have all the faders at 0, and then just slowly turn the amp up until I hit like louder than I would normally mix. And that sets the whole system so that I should be able to run at a 0 gain with the fader near 0, but still have the volume I'm looking for. If you have the opposite problem where you can't get it loud enough, then you don't have enough speaker. Like you need a new sound system. All right, back to the slides. Does that make sense? That's my little soapbox moment. Very, very picky about gain. The only one, this is where it gets a little, so like I said, I want 0, but you also have to take into account what the meters are actually metering. So most meters are peak meters. They're showing you the loudest signal that they're generating, not an average or an RMS. So with drums, they're very peaky for a very short amount of time, but you want to hear the whole drum. So generally with drums, I actually gain them up to about +10, and that on the meter, because the RMS value, the average, is actually now closer to 0. And as long as it's not clipping, you're fine. You want to leave some room. Like you want it as high as you can get with room so that they don't clip if they get louder. High pass filter or a low cut on some consoles. On an analog console, the cheaper ones is generally just a button set at 80 or 100 hertz. Turn it on for absolutely everything except your kick drum, bass, and keyboard, maybe piano. Everything else you want it on. These mics don't care that they're a vocal mic. They pick up everything. And on the low end, it's such a large wave. The more stuff you have down there, just the messier it gets. So with high pass filtering, you can clean up the low end, which just cleans up your whole mix really quickly. If you do good gain and a good high pass filter, you're like 60, 70% of the way there. You could even skip EQ. You'd probably have a decent sound just with good gain and a good high pass filter. Yeah. Yeah, so with your lower instruments, you can sometimes pull them out. Like your bass guitar isn't generally going to have anything useful over 10K. So you might just do a low pass filter, so it comes from the other side and just notches that out. That could get rid of some buzz too. But it's not as important. You can also just sort of notch stuff out. Like I said, a lot of analog consoles, they're like a set number. This one is a really big console, so it actually has a sweepable one. It goes from 0 to 400. The X32 console goes up to 400. The SQ, pretty sure goes up to, I'm in the wrong spot here, for 2K. Yep, 2K. So now you can hear, I've just lopped off everything under 2K. And then as I pull this back, you'll get more and more of the like depth there. But if I go too low, now I'm hitting the subwoofer.